You were born in a private wing of George Washington University Hospital. 3 months before the due date, the Secret Service had already locked down the entire floor. Agents at every door, cameras in every hallway. You hadn't even taken your first breath, and that place was already a fortress. Your father won the election when your mother was 6 months pregnant, which means you've had a security detail since before you could breathe. The doctor who delivers you has undergone more background checks than most CIA operatives. Your first cry is captured by a photographer whose camera will be worth six figures at auction someday. Within 3 hours, your name is trending worldwide on social media. You're 4 days old and your face has already been seen by more people than most celebrities will reach in a lifetime. You didn't choose any of this, but 300 million people already have an opinion about you. Your childhood unfolds in a house with 132 rooms, 35 bathrooms, a bowling alley, a movie theater, and a basketball court. The White House looks like a palace from the outside, and technically it is. But it's a palace where you can't simply walk outside. Every room has cameras, every hallway has agents. The Secret Service gives you a code name when you're 6 years old. Yours is Firefly. You think it sounds cool until you realize it's not a nickname. It's a tactical designation for protection operations. There are men and women who will literally take a bullet for you, not because they love you, but because their job description requires it. That's when you first understand what you actually are. You're not just a child, you're a national security asset. You don't attend normal schools. Option 1, a private academy in DC where your presence turns the entire institution into a fortress. Metal detectors appear at every entrance. Parents sign NDAs. Your classmates' birthday parties require 2 weeks advance notice for a security clearance. Option 2, tutors come to you, which means you grow up in almost complete social isolation. Option 3, a prestigious boarding school, where the Secret Service rents the building next door and monitors every interaction you have. Whichever choice your parents make, the result is the same. You're different. Every teacher is nervous around you. Every parent sees you as either a political opportunity or a liability. Kids your age either desperately want to be your friend for the wrong reasons, or they hate you because their parents hate your father. Your first real memory of being different happens at age 8. You're at a friend's house and you mention something casual your dad said at breakfast. Within 2 hours, it's a news story. Your friend's parents recorded the conversation. They didn't mean harm. They were simply excited. But you learn the most important lesson of your life. Everything you say, everywhere you go, matters to people who aren't there. Nothing is private. Ever. At 10 years old, you start having a schedule. Not because you're some kind of prodigy, but because your dad needs someone short and cute standing next to him at state dinners. Foreign leaders visit, and you're there. Tie too tight, smile fully rehearsed, shaking hands with people who control nuclear arsenals. Your friends are playing video games. You're learning which fork to use so you don't embarrass the entire Western world. Your father calls it an education. You call it unpaid labor. At 13, you discover Twitter. Your dad just made some political decision, and for some reason, you thought it was a good idea to look up the family name. 40 minutes later, you're lying on the floor of your bedroom, having a full existential crisis after reading things no teenager should ever read about their own father. You try to bring it up at dinner. He sighs, says it comes with the job. Your biggest political decision so far has been picking the ice cream flavor at your cousin's birthday, and somehow you're pretty sure someone out there would have strong opinions about that too. Adolescence gives you one single escape valve: online gaming. It's the only place in the world where you're not the president's son. You're just Firefly, and nobody cares. For 3 years, your best friend was some guy from Texas who called you a noob. He never knew who he was playing with. It was the most honest relationship of your life. Your first girlfriend gets her entire social media history torn apart by tabloids within 48 hours. Her parents' voting records are investigated. Pundits debate whether she's appropriate for you. The relationship doesn't end because you fought. It ends because she simply couldn't take it anymore. And that's when you get it. Whoever gets close to you inherits your prison. At 16, you attend your first state funeral. You're standing in Arlington National Cemetery while the flag is folded and handed to a widow. You never met this soldier. The widow looks at you for a second and you realize you don't know what to do with that look. Your father is no longer president, but the last name still opens doors, and apparently also reserves seats at funerals. You're there because the former president's family was invited, and declining isn't really an option. Everyone tells you college will be different. You pick a university across the country, betting on the distance. But the Secret Service detail expands. Your roommate goes through a background check that takes 3 months. Professors treat you differently. Some are intimidated. Others try too hard to prove they're not giving you special treatment, which is itself a form of special treatment. You make friends, but there's always a distance. They're careful about what they say around you. They know words can reach the wrong people, and you realize genuine friendship requires equality, and you'll never be able to be equals with your peers. You're always the former president's child first, yourself second. You begin to face your future. What do you do with a life like that? If you go into politics, you'll be compared to your father forever. Every speech, every decision, every proposal will be measured against his legacy. If you go into the private sector, they'll accuse you of capitalizing on the family name. If you become a philanthropist, they'll call it reputation laundering. If you pursue art or music, no one will take you seriously. Every path has already been defined by who your father is. And the cruel joke is that you can't even complain about it publicly without looking ungrateful. After all, you had advantages that most people can't even begin to imagine. At 22, the Secret Service asks you a question you never expected to receive. The formal protection is coming to an end. From now on, it's optional. You can keep the agents or go on your own. It's the first time in your life that someone gives you a real choice about your own safety. You stand there staring at the agent for a while without answering, because you realize you don't know. You literally don't know what it's like to step outside without someone covering you. You have no memory of that. You never did. You decide to give it a shot. An apartment rented in your name in a city where nobody's waiting for you. No agents at the door, no cameras in the hallway. For the first time in your life, you walk into a place, and there's nobody inside, and there's nobody outside. You sit on the floor because you don't have furniture yet, and you wait for something to happen. Nothing happens, and then you realize you don't know what to do with silence. You never learned. Since the day you were born, there was always someone 40 meters away monitoring every room. Silence was supposed to feel like freedom, but it feels more like an empty room you don't know how to furnish. You spend the first night sleeping on the floor. Your body simply doesn't recognize what it means to truly be alone. At 30, you meet someone who doesn't need explanations. She's a senator's daughter. She grew up knowing what it means to share her father with the country. You fall in love, carefully, cautiously, the way you've learned to do everything. It's the first time someone truly understands you, and somehow that doesn't fix a thing. You carry secrets you'll never be able to share. One night, around age 6, still living in the White House, you wake up thirsty and head downstairs to the kitchen. Your father is sitting alone at the table, head down, his hands covering his face. No aides, no agents, just him. You had never seen your father like that. He never showed weakness to anyone. You go back to your room without making a sound. You never mentioned it to anyone. Not because it was a secret, but because that image was yours alone, and it was the only real thing you ever had of him. You think about going into politics. The name recognition would be an absurd advantage. Polls show you'd already start with 40% approval just from your last name. But you've seen the cost up close. You watched your father sacrifice his health, his privacy, his peace. You saw what it did to the family, and you wonder, is power worth that price? Or is the greatest act of rebellion against your destiny simply choosing to be happy? You go visit your dad on an ordinary afternoon, no special occasion. He opens the door himself. No aide, no agent, in slippers. He looks smaller than you remembered. The house is quiet in a way the White House never was. You have coffee in the kitchen, and he asks about your life in the same tone he used with heads of state. Careful, measured, slightly formal. And you realize he doesn't know another way. That maybe he lost something in the process too. You spend an hour together, and when you leave, he stands in the doorway watching you go. And you can't decide if that's a father saying goodbye to his son, or a man trying to remember how it's done. You are the president's son. You grew up inside a house that belongs to the nation, with a tactical code name before you turned 7, with agents who would die for you without ever really knowing you. At 22, the Secret Service left. The protection was over, and you found out you didn't know what to do with silence. At 30, you still carry the name. It opens doors, sets expectations, precedes anything you say in any room. You've learned to live with it the same way you learned to live with the agents, accepting that it's part of the environment without it necessarily being part of you. Maybe you go into politics, maybe you don't. Either way, the first line of every article ever written about you is already done. Every day you live is another day carrying a last name you never asked for. Inside a sentence that started before your first cry and has no end date in sight. This is your world. And in this world, you are the most recognized and least known person in any room you walk into.